All right, welcome everyone to NFT Roundtable number 4. We're gonna jump right in straight at another quick round of introductions. We've been doing this pretty quick every time so far. We got one new person, but we're gonna get everyone up to speed really quick. If we could have, keep it to under 10 seconds and pass it off to someone else when you're done. I'll start. My name is Peter Wolcott. I'm a freelance project manager, community organizer in the Catalyst community ecosystem. Work on 3 or 4 projects. Super glad to be here. Love the Cardano energy and super happy we can talk NFT verification standards. Let me pass it off to you, Nick.
Hey everyone, it's great to be here. My name's Nick Mason. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of Proofspace, which is it's a multi-network decentralized identity platform, which we have wrapped with no-code tools that make it really easy for people to integrate and scale self-sovereign identity solutions. So we've just finished integrating Atala Prism into our platform. And what that means in a nutshell is that really anyone in the Cardano ecosystem can now launch self-sovereign identity into their projects. So we want to see the migration from Web 2 digital ID to Web 3 decentralized ID. And there's really no excuse anymore.
Awesome. Who pass it to someone else?
Okay, let's go over to Patrick.
Okay, I just had to find the tab. I'm Patrick. I'm founder of NMaker, where I mint some NFTs, and I'm also the author of the CIP for the verification of NFTs with digital identities, together with IMX, who is not here today. And maybe I'll just give it to Pierre.
Hi everyone. Patrick, thank you. Nick, it's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Pierre Kaklamanos. I'm a partnerships manager at the Cardano Foundation, focusing on supporting the startups of our ecosystem and also supporting our enterprise technology relationships. So all the non-blockchain startups trying to onboard the Cardano ecosystem, basically I help absorbing all the inbound requests that the foundation is receiving, and me and my other colleagues. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's me. It's a pleasure to meet you again. And could you please paste in the chat the link to your company, because I didn't catch it. Thank you.
Pass it to someone, Pierre.
Ana Maria and Rares.
Thank you. Hi, we're also called New Mindflow. We are NFT artists. We've already launched 2 NFT projects on Cardano. And
we've been in this space since February of last year, so we've been interested particularly in the royalty function of NFTs since the early days. And in this discussion about NFT verification, we're looking at ways we can integrate maybe with the royalty standard and help evolve that also. It's nice being here today, and we'll pass it to Sent.
Thanks for that, Rares. I'm Sent, and I'm part of the Sent stake pool team, and in this regard, I'm one of the NFT Guild members and hosts of this roundtable meeting. Particularly interested in development on Cardano and verification functionality, funded by a Catalyst to look at standards for verification and create an open source tool for doing the verification. So I'll pass it over to Tyler. Thanks.
Hey guys, I'm Tyler. Pleasure to see you again, Nick. We met actually maybe a week or two ago. And I'm the business development manager over at Emergo, and I handle all things kind of NFT related. Yeah, that's me. Happy to be here and happy to contribute and see where I can fit in and just facilitate.
Thank you, Tyler. All right, guys. So agenda for this call is we're gonna present and talk about the Polis survey, which we hope to be shared broadly across the Cardano ecosystem, and maybe even get some more input statements from the poll from y'all. Anna Marie and Raj, one of you want to present that? Present the poll, or I can share it.
Yeah, sure. Do you want to share your screen, or
Sure.
should we?
You can go. You can do it. Yeah. There's a report too. All right.
If we still have that report open.
First one's the poll. Second one's the report. Ooh. Anthony just joined.
So, as part of our effort with the NFT Guild to gather data points from the community about this emerging NFT verification standard, we've put together a Polis survey, which we drafted about 10 days ago, and it's been making the rounds. I'll share my screen here. And so, yeah, we wanted to take a look at some preliminary results. We had 40 people who voted so far, and 461 votes were cast in total. So a quick intro to Polis for those who may not be familiar. It's a platform for running non-traditional surveys, in the sense that you're basically not answering questions, but you're voting on statements put forward by a group, and you're encouraged to add your own statements. So anyone who's in this call or who will be watching the recording afterwards is encouraged to add their statements and to vote, obviously, on the statements that have already been added. So we preceded when I say we, I mean the NFT Guild, with 10 statements, which we intentionally kept a bit more general about the NFT verification standard and how this might look. And we're looking forward to get your input and the community's inputs on them, but especially new data points regarding what you value when it comes to this emerging standard, and also other ideas that you might have.
Yeah.
So
Additional statements can be added. Let's show the poll too, so they understand where statements can be added as well.
yeah, I can quickly show all itself too. Was it open here? Zoom in full screens. I'm not seeing the link. Okay.
I think this one is it? No.
Here. I can do it.
Now we have it now.
You got it. All right.
So when you're viewing the actual poll, it looks like this. We have a short intro, and then you have cards with the statements here. And you can vote on each one, either agree, disagree, or pass if it's something you're not sure about. And this is the particularly important part of it. You can add your own statement or your own perspective here and click submit. And after you do, previous responders should get notified via email that a new statement has been added, and new respondents will automatically get to see your statement as part of the cards that they'll vote on. So, as we were saying, push this. We already had 7 additional statements added, so 17 in total. And by looking at the data we have so far, the most agreed upon points is that the NFT verification tool and standard should be fully open sourced. No surprises there. And that they should prioritize all actors, all individuals, and all needs of the NFT ecosystem, including artists, collectors, NFT minters, and marketplaces as well. We put etc. there, but Peter, I think he shared the link to, so I won't go into detail now. We're going to add the link to this, to the results in the description of the video, and I think each one of you can take a look at the results in their own time, so we won't take up too much time with this limited meeting. Going over the results, but we're going to keep this poll open for another 2 weeks, and then in the next roundtable we can take a deeper dive and look at all the data that has been gathered from the community in the meantime. So considering that this poll is mainly targeted towards the technical parts of the Cardano community, I would say that the 40 participants that we had so far is not a bad result, but like we said, we kindly ask you to share the poll in your networks so that we have as many data points and gather a relevant feedback so that we can proceed in an informed way in our discussions going forward. So yeah, this has been a quick rundown of that, and
yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, so we encourage you to add statements as well, and yeah, share broadly and as far as possible so we can get as much input on this from the community as possible. Moving on to our next agenda item, we got these 2 CIPs that are in the calendar invite. Alessandro posted, and yeah, Sent, you had some thoughts in the green room for a little bit. Should you kick us off?
Yeah, and those were meant for the green room. No, no, of course. I must say I've been reading through both of the CIPs, one by Tobler and team, and also another CIP by Alessandro and team. And both of the CIPs in a way goes into how to do a verification and how to add verifiable data to the NFT space. But it's interesting to see that they are in some ways solving it in a similar manner, but also in some very different ways. So I don't know. I haven't prepared any presentation on the differences between the two. If that was what you asked for, Peter.
No, just trying to get the conversation going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've been into both of the CIPs and left some comments. So I don't know how we should do that. Should we take a look at the comments or?
Well, I think the most immediate question is everyone familiar with the CIPs in question before we get the discussion started? So we're referring
Patrick.
to.
Yeah. Patrick turned his mic on for a second. What you
Yeah,
got, man?
Yeah, I have to admit I didn't really have a lot of time in the last few weeks so a few of the comments under at least our identity CIP have been unanswered. And I also spoke with Alessandro privately about, because he also proposed that we somehow find a way to integrate both proposals in a way. And then I also spoke with ADA handles yesterday, or 2 days ago, and today again, because ADA handles, as you might be aware, is proposing something similar, not a CIP yet, but in their catalyst proposal, which I'm sure will get passed because ADA handles is quite big. So essentially, I figured out a few things that we definitely have to change in the CIP for the DIDs. Basically, one of them is that it's at the moment only focused on collections, not on single NFTs, and you need to be able to also attach DIDs to single NFTs, especially when thinking about the ADA handles, that you have like one handle for, I don't know, me, Patrick Tobler, for example, and then you can attach the DID to that. That's pretty simple to expand. Then a few small minor details, and then I have to sit down and think about Alessandro's proposal, because it's not easy to figure out like what the implications are for all the different proposals and how they can play together. And I also don't think that it's that there's a lot of benefit discussing it if we're not like just, or at least for me, I need to just sit down and hammer down on it for like a few hours and then I get it. But yeah, that's kind of what I have to say about it.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. I spent a lot of time going through them and to try to understand them. And of course, my comments might be it might be that you find the comments not hitting the target, so to say, but it also has to do with that I wasn't part of defining the CIP, so I'm trying to get some feedback as well, and perhaps influence you in some directions.
No, that's perfect. I think it's the best thing you can do is post these comments, because then we have everything written down and we just follow the regular CIP process, instead of just discussing things behind the scenes. We kind of have to have a comment. That's also what I told the ADA handles people, that they need to write down exactly what their requirements are, and then we can adjust the CIP together, and then everyone is involved and it's publicly visible why we are changing the CIP, basically, instead of just randomly changing it, right? So thank you for the comments. I haven't really read through them yet, but I will. And I also don't know how to make it so that other people can actually also submit pull requests to the CIP, because that's what I would like to do, so that you, for example, could come in and change things yourself, and then someone just has to accept the pull request. But I actually don't know how to do that. We'll look into that.
So I guess it would be better to postpone the conversation to next time about the two SIPs, especially since we've talked to Thomas, I think is his name, is the co-author with Alessandro of the SIPs he is proposing, and he should be present next time and deliver a presentation about them. He wanted to come now, but he wasn't available at this time. So I don't know what exactly his role was. He's from IOG, from what I understood.
Okay.
I think we should also tackle the royalty standard at some point, because now after writing a SIP, I realized how bad the royalty standard SIP is. Like I'm still a big proponent of the standard, how the standard is defined, and I don't want to change the standard itself, but the SIP itself is just terrible, and we just need to make it structured and all that stuff. And then if it's structured, maybe we have a chance of actually getting it, you know, through the process.
Welcome, Blake.
Hey, thank you. Sorry I'm late.
I'm good. Just been discussing the two SIPs on the calendar invite, and yeah, if you have looks like we're gonna need a little bit more time for consideration from the people present. I don't know if you have any additional thoughts or have had a chance to look at them, but would love your feedback.
Yeah, just give me a few minutes to review them. I did take a quick look when they came out, but I haven't reviewed them since. So just give me a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Peter, I had a quick question for Patrick, if that's all right.
Yeah, send it, dude. Floor is yours.
I was wondering, yeah, I was just wondering, so Patrick, I haven't had a chance to review your guys' SIP in detail. I've been meaning to, but we have been in contact with Tim and the guys from IMX just to get more clarification on it. I was wondering, do you guys outline in it, in your recollection, the different types of credentials that could be included on the SIP, or is that just left open? Do you know?
That's pretty open. So we reference the W3C standard DIT, way of doing it, but essentially you could reference whatever you like, and we have a field that defines the structure basically. Let me just check what it's called. The context, yeah, exactly, context field. So basically in the context you can put in like what type of verification it is, and then you just say, okay, W3C standard or something else. But I think that is also one thing which I discussed a lot with the ADA handles team yesterday. We need to follow, or we need to make sure that we follow this W3C DIT standard basically, because that's the only way, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure Nick would agree. I mean, that's what Atala Prism is doing. That's what everyone is doing. If we do something else, we just write Cardano into a wall, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're not going to be losing out on any interoperability or compatibility with the wider. Yeah.
And that's kind of, sorry, one last thought. That's kind of the cool thing about how we tried at least to structure it, that we have the whole DIT and everything stored at a random location, which could be and will be in most cases IPFS, but could also be a normal web server, but it could also be a token on Cardano, could also be a token on Ethereum, doesn't really matter. So the idea is really to keep it as open as possible and also make it so that the DIT document is not located inside the collection basically, but instead the DIT document is somewhere else, and it could be the same DIT for a Cardano NFT and an Ethereum NFT, right? And then you can have like the end goal would be, okay, you have like this wallet, regular wallet, and then you have like all your DITs in there, and some of them are public, some of them are not public, and so on. And then you basically can do whatever you like with them. Like some of them are for creating NFTs, some others are for just, you know, verifying yourself on a random website, or I don't know.
Oh, sounds great. So just one follow-up question really quick. So I was talking to Victor, who's on Nick's team at Proofspace, and he was saying he needs to review it in more detail, but you know, he wanted to look into whether essentially the CIP would be compatible with their solution. They're working with a solution that's built on Atala Prism, whereas I know IMX is using kind of, they have their own kind of proprietary DID solution. So do you know, will the CIP be trying to be compatible with different DID providers that have, you know, different, you know, their DIDs are structured differently, essentially?
100%. That's the idea. So essentially, you know, what Atala Prism is doing is Atala Prism is also just a DID provider, and IMX is a DID provider, and then there are many other DID providers, and you can choose whichever you like, and the standard is open to be workable with all of them. And in the ideal case, because that's kind of where the problems with DIDs come in, like even if you have a DID, you are still trusting the provider, right? You trust IMX in this case, that they haven't done any mistake creating the DID, or that they haven't been hacked and stuff like that. So in an ideal world, you don't only create a DID at one location, but you would create a DID for like multiple times to have redundancy in there. And that's not really super necessary for most people, but if you're Paris Hilton or something, then, you know, it might be necessary because more people are on your back, basically. So yes, it's compatible.
Sounds great. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, that's very good to hear. The part about making use of Atala Prism as an alternative was actually one of the comments that I left. So very happy that you confirm the possibility to also make use of Atala Prism.
Yeah, I can't talk too much about it, I think, because that's kind of IMX and IOG's thing, but we have been speaking with IOG about this DID multiple times, and I hope they will officially support it sometime soon. But this is not a confirmation or anything, but at least it's looking like that.
Cool.
Since you mentioned the royalty standard, Patrick, how do you see that possibly fitting into this discussion? Do you see a possibility to merge it with the identification, so as the royalty information would live in the same place as the DID?
Yes, that's actually one of the things which I really like about how we set up the royalty standard, that it's in this unnamed token. And essentially what could happen is you have this unnamed token, and then in this unnamed token, you have the royalty standard, and you have the DID, then you have, I don't know, some random information, whatever you want to have, basically. And then we have like this one central point that everyone has to check for all the information about this collection. So that's why we chose to also include the DID in that unnamed token. But yeah, I mean, the royalty standard is a difficult thing because it has some obvious disadvantages at the moment. And like one of them is, of course, that you can't split the royalties. And the idea of the royalty standard, when we first defined it, and I pushed very hard for this actually, is to keep it as simple as possible so that everyone can use it and integrate it. So that's why we only have like one address. And the idea is that you have like this one address, and you could say, okay, instead of putting a regular Cardano address in there, I put a smart contract address in there. And then you send the royalties to the smart contract, and the smart contract splits the royalties up, and you can have logic in there, and you can make it super complicated, and I don't know, have thresholds and whatever. But the standard itself is still very simple. And that's, in my opinion, how it should be. Like, keep it as simple as possible, but as flexible as possible. And the problem there is that we need to change a few things in the royalty standard. Like, for example, we need to say that in the standard, you always have to send have to send the ADA with not with an empty datum, but with a datum which is basically like an empty array, because like there are a few smart contract things that we have to consider. And if you send ADA with, or actually, never mind, you have to send an empty datum, but not without a datum. So if you send one with an empty datum, I think, then the smart contract can use it. But if you send it without a datum, the smart contract cannot use it and the ADA is lost. So we need to define that so that it's actually usable. And then we need to bring out solutions that people can actually create this royalty splitting stuff very easily, which at the moment is not done basically. And we at some point actually published a smart contract to make that royalty splitting possible, but no one is using it. It's just sitting in the GitHub and no one has ever used it except for me one time. So basically it's kind of useless, and it's also useless if you know, JPEG Store, for example, or CNFT would just send the ADA to a smart contract with no datum, because then it's just stuck in there. So we need to make sure that we make the CIP bulletproof, basically. That's what I'm getting at.
From an artist's perspective, would it be possible then to have different royalty rates for each NFT project that you make, considering that it's connected to your digital identity?
Or if it would be.
Or if it would be, yeah.
At the moment, it's not.
Yeah, it's not really connected, in my opinion. It's just a different standard, but it's under the same token, but the DID is outside. So so yes, it's possible to have like different royalties for each NFT collection. Yeah, it's still the same. I wouldn't change the royalty standard. I not much. I would change it a little bit to make it more flexible. I would flesh out the CIP, and it's just a matter of someone sitting down and writing it, to be honest. And then basically we have something workable. And at the moment, no one is doing that because everyone is busy. Yeah.
Would tying it to the DID open up the possibility of making it editable in the future, or was that an intentional decision to have it locked in?
It's not locked in. It's actually editable. That's the idea. So we have multiple different ways of how you could do the DID. If you open the CIP and you scroll down to the images, there are two images in there, the simple and static and complex and more flexible image. And the idea is with the simple one that essentially you reference just the DID, right, directly from the policy. So it would be on IPFS, and then it's unchangeable, and the DID is in there, and it's always the same, right? It's static. And then the more complex one, there the idea is that instead of referencing the DID directly, you reference a token on Cardano, which is an identity token, and that token can live wherever. It could be in a completely different policy. It could be, I don't know, it doesn't really matter. It will most likely be in a completely different policy, and maybe under this policy, you as a person have like 10 different identity tokens. And then if you leave that policy open, you can always change that identity token and change the DID, which is extremely important, because I didn't know this before as well, but it's when you play with identity, you have to be flexible. And IMX explained this to me many times. Like, for example, if the government comes in and says, okay, I don't know, you just changed your name or your living place or something like that, you have to be able to change it. So basically the idea was to keep it as flexible as possible and allow for both.
I was actually referring to the royalty rates.
Oh, the royalties. Oh, sorry.
DID, but explaining how you could change the DID itself if there would be connected. I'm assuming you could change the royalty rates also.
The royalties aren't stored inside the DID, so no. Like once it's locked, no. At the moment, the CIP for the royalties is very strict, so you have to technically mint the NFT where the royalties are in first. And then if you don't mint it as the first token inside the collection, it will not be considered. I know that most marketplaces don't follow that, like JPEG Store is not following that as far as I know, Blake. And that's good. Like I think that was a mistake back then. Like we have the locking mechanisms and so on for a reason, right? So let's just keep it as open as possible, as long as the empty unnamed token is in there, and as long as the policy is open, why not be able to change it like any other NFT?
What was that, Patrick? Sorry, I missed what we were talking about.
No worries. The royalties. So on JPEG Store, if there's a royalty token, do you only do you follow the actual CIP, or do you consider any royalty token inside the collection? Because the CIP says it has to be the very first transaction, right?
Yeah. So we've actually had a few times where people mint the royalty token, but it's not the first one in the collection, and then their royalties don't get caught by our scraper, and then they come to us and ask why they're not receiving royalties for their collection. So like as a general rule, we try to follow the CIP. We try and get the royalty token, parse it on JPEG Store, but in reality, like there's so many times where like that doesn't suffice. So there's lots of collections where they've minted the royalty token, but it's not the first one in the collection. There's collections that don't even have a royalty token. There's collections where they've minted the token and then they no longer have access to that wallet address, so they want us to switch it to another one. So it's a very tricky-ish, like it's a very complex issue. And I think that the original CIP definitely does not cover all the like sort of use cases you would want for royalties.
And for your own minting tool, like the current one, the solo NFT minting tool, you're not minting the royalty token at all, right?
I believe it's optional to the creator, so they can choose to mint one or not.
Okay, I tried it, and I'm like pretty sure you're not minting the royalty token, but you are setting it probably in your database somewhere.
I see.
Then,
I'll double check on that. But thanks for the heads up, Patrick.
Because I think that's a very, like, I don't want to call you out here, but I think that's a very bad solution if you don't do that, because then it's extremely centralized.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you calling me out. But we do leave it up to the creator. Like there are downsides to minting a royalty token that I think a lot of people aren't aware of. Like one is, if you mint a royalty token, you can never change the percentage, right? Like that's in the CIP is, as a collector, when you buy an NFT, you should know what the royalties are and you should have some confidence that they will never change. This is great for collectors, but some creators hate this. Maybe they mint a token with 10% royalties, and then they realize that no one wants to pay 10% royalties and they want to change that percentage, right? So there's not like a one size fits all solution here, which is why, like, I agree with you. If the royalty, we should be minting a royalty token when the creator wants one. But I think oftentimes creators aren't aware of the trade-offs associated with minting a token. And we just want to give them that option, because right now, I think the CIP is very inflexible. And again, like creators might want to change royalties later on.
Yeah, and that's what I meant when I said earlier that we have to change like a few things in the CIP, so that like we have the policy locking for a reason, right? So why not make the royalty changeable until the policy is locked? There's no reason why we shouldn't do that. So we can change that, and then we can also change that it doesn't have to be the first transaction, of course, because that doesn't make any sense to me. So if we change those two things, and then also add the one with the datum, so that you can actually always send royalties to smart contracts, or at least send them in a way so that smart contracts can work with them, then it's extremely flexible. And then it's just, a matter of time until, the tooling is there for people to do royalty splitting and so
Yeah.
But yeah, someone just has to sit down and write it. And I've been thinking about it, but I'm kind of busy.
We're all super busy building. That's the problem. But royalty splitting would be amazing. Like that's huge. Another thing that I would like to see added to the royalty SIP is how do we handle cases where a creator has like basically rugged a project and they just like scammed everyone out of their like investment in the NFT project. I would like for there to be some way for the community to like take over control of a project. And like, you know, this can be like specified by the creator. Like maybe they don't want that possibility that the community like kicks them out, but like maybe we could have other collections where that is possible. Right now, if a creator like rugs a project, our stance after speaking with the Cardano community is we can't change the royalty address. Like if there's a royalty token, like we follow it, hard stop. Like we're not going to start giving royalties to the community just because someone like the creator left the project. But I don't think that's an ideal world. And I would like to see the possibility of like projects where, for example, someone in the community works really hard and ends up like receiving royalties as part of like their hard work on the project. I think that could open up some new like potential use cases for NFTs and their communities.
Can I jump in if it's okay with this is, I have to admit, like compared to everyone else in this room, my understanding of NFTs is pretty poor. And so some of this is going a little bit over my head, but I wanted to ask why it is that royalty policies are minted as tokens rather than issued as verifiable credentials. It seems that some of the qualities that you're describing in terms of the weaknesses of royalties being issued as tokens are mitigated or overcome somehow in the verifiable credential format. Is it because the royalty tokens are transferred along with the asset to the new owner?
I'm not quite sure what you mean by verified credentials. Are you referring to some sort of a centralized solution for storing royalty data?
No, so but verifiable credential is it's the identity credential that you receive in a self-sovereign identity protocol. So if you know, like a credential could contain any number of data attributes, and those data attributes collectively make up a credential. And so a credential can refer, it's a very broad term, it can refer to your financial history, it can refer to a health record, it can refer to a particular NFT or an NFT collection or a creator's identity, whatever it may be. And I'm curious, given the versatility of a credential, if there is a schema, and a schema, by the way, is like it's a standard that all credentials for a particular function adhere to. So if a schema, and like a classic schema is the passport schema, it has certain fields that all passport issuers have to comply with. If there's a schema for royalties, for NFT royalties, would that not be a more versatile solution than perhaps versatile is the wrong word? But would that, I mean, I don't know, would that not overcome some of the issues that you're identifying with royalty tokens?
I think the main reason that there is a royalty token in the first place is, one, it's decentralized, or at least in theory, because anyone can look up the royalty token on chain and know how much royalties a project is getting and where those royalties should go. It's also a really simple implementation, right? Like if you want royalties for a project, or at least if you want them to be standardized, just mint that token. I'm not entirely sure like what the implementation of a like identity solution would look like. I think that would require decentralized IDs, which I think is still sort of in the early stages on Cardano. We haven't seen like widespread adoption of decentralized IDs yet. So potentially we can tie royalties to those IDs later on. But I think right now it's a bit too early for that.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. I think where it's potentially interesting is, you know, the creators, the bit that really caught me is what Patrick said about creators losing the ability to be entrepreneurial if they see that the royalty fee that they've imposed on the asset isn't landing with the customer, that they'd like to adjust that. That makes total sense to me. And the advantage with a verifiable credential is that it's revocable, and we can publish verifiable credential attributes as datum on the blockchain. Like, so we essentially are developing a solution whereby you can represent a verifiable credential as a token, and you can represent a token as a verifiable credential. So when a verifiable credential is revoked and reissued with an updated royalty percentage, then that could be still searched on the pub.
I'm more than happy to continue this conversation later, Nick. I just want to make sure, because I joined this call like halfway through, that we're not derailing the original purpose of the call, which I think was to discuss the two CIPs, 67 and 68. So
Oh, good.
I mean, I'm not
we
sure
decided to not follow that up because no one has read through them in enough detail.
Okay, so we're gonna wait for the next call so that people had time to fully read through them. Okay.
100%. Yeah, we're gonna get on that next 2 weeks from now. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, so don't let me sidetrack the conversation at all. I'm kind of learning and thinking as I go. I thought I would share the thought, and perhaps there's something to it, perhaps there's not. I don't mind.
Maybe some in the future.
I must say that, Nick, you bring something interesting into the conversation. So I'm not thinking that you are sidetracking this, just so that it's said. But of course, it's not easy to always see all the possibilities when it comes when the technology is young and not adopted yet. So, but yeah, good input, Nick.
Yeah, thank you.
I agree. I don't see any reason why we couldn't issue the royalties as verified credentials, or just like even with the standard that we proposed with the DIT connection, you know, they could just be stored inside this essentially. So there's no reason why we couldn't do that, except for I really hate having standards and then other standards and then other standards, and then in the end every single new project on Cardano that wants to come in has to, I don't know, figure out what to do, which is the reason why we made the royalty standard and why we made it specifically before smart contracts, because I was, or not only me, but Adam Dean and everyone who was involved in that, our main concern was that the same thing happens to us that is happening on Ethereum right now, which is that every single marketplace out there has their own standard in a way. And then in the end, none of them are compatible anymore. And to be honest, we already see this on Cardano, because now, you know, I fully get all your concerns, Blake, that you have with, you know, rug pulls and so on. But essentially, you're overriding the stuff that's on the blockchain, and then CNFT.io is overriding stuff that's on the blockchain, and then, you know, all the marketplaces that will evolve are kind of following different stuff, and then in the end, no one knows where you get which royalties. And that's at the moment it's no problem because 99% of the traffic is on JPEG Store. But what if it isn't in the future? And then it's a real big problem.
I totally agree with you, Patrick. And like in an ideal world, like everything is like just on the blockchain and we're not overriding it. I would go so far as to say that I do not think it's possible to create a successful NFT marketplace on Cardano without overriding some of those tokens. Because like there's so many, like Clay Nation, like one of the space bots, like some of the biggest projects on Cardano do not have a royalty token. right? And then there's also really big projects that have messed up their royalty token. And like, if they're not getting royalties, they can't support their communities. So like, we never override what's on the blockchain. If it is like, how do I say this? If we can avoid it, but there's cases where you just can't avoid it, or you're going to have like an entire community just super pissed off because the royalties are basically being burned, and they're not going to the creators of the project. So
At the moment, it definitely makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of, we really need to fix the standard and improve it such that at least going forwards, once we come up with a new set of standards, it like covers a lot of the use cases that the current royalty metadata standard does not cover. And hopefully we can get to a future, like an ideal state where every new NFT collection on Cardano is following those guidelines. And then we as a marketplace don't have to circumvent what's in the standard.
It's also like, I agree with you at the moment. It's also just not scalable. That's also one of the issues. Like at the moment, you can kind of manage with all the NFT collections out there, and there are not that many. But what if we have, I don't know, 1 billion tokens out there, which will happen eventually, simply because they will be issued all the time automatically for every random shit that we do. Then suddenly, you know, you cannot go and manually override stuff. It simply will not work, and at least in my opinion. So we really need to fix that standard.
I'm just curious, is that part of, like, because I was reading over the 2 CIPs, it looks like the CIPs are mostly revolve around metadata standards, not necessarily the royalty standard.
Yeah, it's not part of the CIPs. It's just came up in the discussion.
Got it. It seems like that is also like a really urgent issue. So perhaps we should make a new standard to like address the royalty situation as well.
Or we just update the old standard.
Yeah, fair enough.
Let's let me think. Okay, I wish I could promise you that I spent some time this weekend to get my thoughts out of the way and then write some updates to the royalty standard. But I'm not sure if I can do it. Maybe next week, maybe the week after that or so, I can draft something and then we can reconvene and discuss if you'd like. Someone else can also do it. But I think since I'm one of the original authors of the standard, it kind of makes sense for me to do it first, and then everyone brings in their, like we kind of have to follow the CIP standard, that everyone is commenting below, you know, what are the issues, and then we fix the issues, and then at some point it will get merged, right?
I was going to suggest, do we already have a Discord group set up for this chat? Okay, cool. Can someone link that to me? Because I don't think I've been, maybe I just have my notifications turned off, but it would be nice to discuss this sort of asynchronously between video calls to share more context.
Yeah, dropping it in the chat. I think you're in there.
All right, cool. Thank you.
That'll link you to it.
I hate Discord.
Oh, Patrick, thank you for saying it. It gives me a headache every time I go in.
I also hate Slack, because now Slack is asking me to pay something because I'm in too many different channels which I got invited to and which I barely visit. So yeah, I don't know. Let's just use Twitter. No, I'm kidding.
Let's just meet up more often.
Let's use Twitter for some threads. Why don't we?
That's a very bad idea.
Isn't that a thread platform? I thought it was.
It is. Okay.
Awesome. Well, it's top of the hour. Let's wrap this up. thank you all for coming. See you in a couple weeks. Any last thoughts from anyone? Itching to say something? No.
It's great to meet you all. Thanks for organizing it. Great conversation.
Thanks for coming, Nick. Nice to see you. All right. Shutting off the recording. Peace.